context. And I hope that's a good link to hand over to you, Keith.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Can I just check this is on? Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, great. Okay. Well, first of all, thanks to Glenn and colleagues at Simpson House for the invite to come along today. You've heard a little bit about the project that we're going to be involved in. We'll say a little bit more about that later on. Jordan and I did actually meet over a coffee, so just shows you what might come out of a discussion over a coffee. You never know. A few months later, here we are. I'm actually speaking on behalf of myself and my colleague Julia Fotheringham, who is sadly not very well today. So I'm not sure if Julia's following online, but if you are, Julia, hello, and I hope you're better soon. What I want to talk about is the use of digital and social media in service user support and recovery. But there's a reason why we've said exploring the use. This isn't a presentation, and the workshop's not a workshop about answers or solutions. It's about possibilities and things that could be tried out that might have a place. In terms of our own role, Julia and I don't work we work in education, in higher education, although we're coming to quickly realise that both are essentially about learning and peer support in many ways. So that's another reason why we're not here to sort of suggest solutions to anything, but rather just explore some possibilities. What do I mean by social media and digital tools? Things like Facebook, things like podcasts, things like discussion boards, other things that will become apparent as we kind of move throughout the presentation. But I think it's important to sort of get away from the technology. Although I'm someone that works with technology a lot, I'm not that interested in it. I'm interested in what you can do with it and the possibilities that opens up. And the kind of starting perspective for this is that I would argue that the most effective uses of online tools and media, online technologies, for any social purpose, whether that's education, access to services, peer support, the most effective uses are about enhancing and extending the spaces and opportunities we've got to engage with each other. Not to replace this, but adding something to them, and to create new spaces to engage with each other as well, in ways that help us share experiences and create networks, tools and resources that will support and inform ourselves, but will also support and inform other peers in the future. I think mindful use of technology is very, very important, and we'll come back to this in the workshop this afternoon as well. Technology can be used for very negative purposes, but where it's used mindfully, I think the spaces and opportunities that we can create online can empower the collective voice of groups. I think it can certainly provide additional ways into conversations, ways into groups, ways into resources, ways into services for individuals who are not quite sure where to start, or who might lack the confidence in getting started, who might lack the confidence to turn up to a face-to-face meeting or a face-to-face group. And within education and within other areas, there's increasing evidence to support this idea that technology can be used in these ways, and there are lots of examples coming up now that can inform good, effective technology-enhanced practice in a range of areas. So I'd like to just share a few of those. Some drawn from education, some drawn from recovery work, some drawn from other third sector projects that myself and colleagues have been involved in, and just tease out some of the things that can be done, which we'll explore further in the workshop, and then we'll end this presentation with a little bit of an invitation. So I just want to go through a few examples in different areas. Some of you might be familiar with the work of Paul Garrigan and his writings around recovery and his own recovery. Paul Garrigan has got an extensive collection of podcasts, audio recordings available online. People can listen to on their computer, on their MP3 devices, about his own journey through recovery, offering advice to others as well. Really good resources, but there are other things we can do. These are resources that anyone can visit at any point in time, but we can be more structured about how we use these things. A project that we've recently run at the university is a project called Messages of Support. And it's about providing guidance for college students who are going to come into university into the second or third year of a program. What's that got to do with recovery? Absolutely nothing. But what it's about is about helping those students who are making that transition get into the culture of the university, join groups that are already well established when they come in, and learn what is involved in studying university and integrating effectively, because they're coming in second or third year. It's a really apprehensive time for them. There are a lot of things they've got to get their heads around, and it's a significant challenge in many respects. The Messages of Support project produced a series of podcasts that would go to these students at key points in their transition. They come to university, week 1, in week 2, the people need to find out about how they can network with their peers. But what was nice about these and what was effective about these was they weren't from tutors, they weren't from support services within the university, they weren't from the library, they were from other students who'd successfully made that transition already. They were from other students who'd been direct entrants and who tackled the challenges that their peers coming into the university were going to face. It was their stories and their words for their colleagues, and that was really, really effective. And we're starting to see this type of approach, podcasts offering messages of support at key points in transitional journeys, starting to be used in a whole range of areas. Recovery is one, but there are other areas as well. Reflective writing. Has anyone heard of blogs? Blogs, yeah, quite a few nods. So basically like web journals really, essentially. They can be open or they can be private. There's a lot of work being looked at the moment around reflective writing for all kinds of purposes. This is an example of a blog that a student kept on a project on one of our programs. It's a really significant project. It involves a student asking questions of themselves, planning ahead, setting goals, and it's quite an involved piece of work. As a means of opening up a reflective, useful dialogue between the student and their tutor, they keep this private blog. They make an entry to it at least once a week, and the tutor subscribes to it. So the tutor gets an email notification when that latest entry's been made, and they don't have to come to them. We can go online, we can see what they're dealing with that week, we can see where they're having difficulty, we can see where they're having success, and we can engage with them that way. Reflective writing through things like blogs is starting to be explored again in a whole range of other areas as a means for people in any context to articulate themselves as they're making a transitional journey or as they're setting targets and goals. And it becomes a kind of shared private space between, in this case, a student and their tutor that could easily be a recovery service user and their support worker. But it's documenting things and challenges as they go along. Peer support and exploring common issues. Most people have probably seen discussion boards or know a little bit about the Society of Message Boards online. These are the discussion boards from Cyber Recovery Net, an extensive range, and you just need to look at the tens of thousands of contributions to them. So this is like a resource that anyone can join, and it's kind of worldwide. What's quite good about things like this, and what's not often understood, is that if you're someone who's a little bit less forthcoming, a bit nervous about joining a group of any type of group, it could be recovery, it could be a student group, then this provides you with an opportunity to listen to what others are saying, to read what others are saying, get a sense of the key issues that people are talking about, get a sense of who people are before you actually commit to asking what some people might call a daft laddie question, things you're not quite sure about. It gives you a little bit of space to reflect, more so than if you go to a face-to-face group and leave saying, I really wish I'd asked about that because I went and wanted to know about it. I didn't ask, and now I'm going away not knowing about it. So it gives you an additional space to engage people, not to replace what we do face-to-face, because the best uses of technology are to enhance what we do face-to-face. Paul? We can skip that one. It's another example of the discussion boards. We do a lot of work in terms of supporting students and getting the educators we work with to support their students and using virtual drop-in sessions. If you've got a group of people that are dispersed across a geographic region, can't easily get to see each other, then there are easy to use technologies around, many of them free, that allow you to have real-time drop-in sessions. We run an online course for people all across the UK and mainland Europe and a bit further afield. Every week at a set point we have a virtual drop-in session that the people on our programme can come into if they want, just to ask some questions, just to chew the cud, with their kind of peers, or not. But that space is there if they want to use it. What we'll often do is have dedicated drop-in sessions around key issues that have maybe come up in a particular course. Okay, this is emerging as an issue for a number of people. This week's drop-in session will be focused around this. You can record these things and make them available within the members of the group so they've got a record and they can go back and revisit conversations. We also make a lot of use of virtual tools, virtual classroom tools for guest speakers. What we've found is that our students, who can be from lots of different discipline areas, often guest experts in their area. People that they've read about, people that they know are experienced, it might be peers or it might be more established people in a particular area. But getting these people to come in takes a lot of work on their part and ours. What we found is if you say to an expert in any area, we've got a group of people that really want to hear from you and would benefit from what you've got to say. Could you spare us half an hour, 40 minutes, to join us at 3:30 on Wednesday for a bit of a discussion, and our group will be there to ask you some questions. We've never had anyone say no, because most people that care about the subject, whatever that subject might be, if they're asked to share their knowledge and expertise with a group of other interested people, then they're more than willing to do that if they can do it from their home, from their office. It's about connecting people. But using an approach like this, again, it can be recorded. It becomes a reusable learning resource for that group, whether it's a group of students or whether it's a group of people in a club or whether it's a group of recovery service users. And again, these types of approaches are starting to be used a bit more widely within recovery user support. Move on. I'll just wind up with another couple of brief examples. The use of social networking. This is an example of the Get Connected project from LEAD, LEAD or Linking Education and Disability Scotland. They work with disabled learners and their carers across Scotland. And the Get Connected project is up north, and it's there to provide online support for the students, for the learners and their carers across the kind of vast region that Get Connected supports, to come together online and improve their collective voice and their collective active citizenship. It's about bringing people together to get their voice heard by stakeholders, by pressure groups, by other people they need to be speaking to, and to raise their message. Works very effectively. Again, these types of approaches using things like Facebook can be adapted to a whole range of issues. Picking up on some of the things we've just heard about earlier on, this is the Facebook group for a project called Online Ambition, a pilot project that was started last year. It's about using online tools and digital media alongside face-to-face events to provide access to employment, or to improve access to employment opportunities for young disadvantaged learners who've maybe been disenfranchised within the education system and maybe don't have the types of background that their peers might have had. Again, about bringing people together and about offering them opportunities collectively and individually, creating networks, creating communities. We do need to better understand the challenges though, and I'm deliberately not talking about the kind of darker side of using technology. It can be used for lots of very ineffective, lots of detrimental purposes, and the workshop might unpack some of that this afternoon. But we are starting to get to a point where we can better understand how these things can be used. This is an example of a recent article from the Chicago Tribune about a student, Sam Sekulic, who earlier this year, it might be late last year, found herself struggling with the medication she was taking for a bipolar condition, found herself struggling with student loans, found herself struggling with arguments she was having with her parents, and started to have suicidal thoughts. She posted a message to this effect on Facebook, and almost immediately there was 12, 13, 14 friends and colleagues offering messages of support for this student. She later went on to say that she wasn't quite sure how close she was to suicide, but she was certainly, on the brink. And those immediate messages of support, to some extent, brought her back. And she considers herself, almost fully recovered now. But it's about the people, not the technology. Sam's message that went out there brought 12, 13, 14 people to her straight away, immediately, in a way that it couldn't have done if she made a phone call and the word got around slowly that Sam's in a bit of trouble. So this is what it's about, but we do need to better understand how we use these things. A final example, then I'll conclude. Thinking digitally with Lead Scotland. This is a project that I'm involved in with Lead Scotland at the moment, and it's around using online tools and approaches for their volunteers and their learners to undertake negotiated learning opportunities. They pick something they're interested in. It might be their favourite football club. It might be a social issue. It might be a job or a trade they want to move into. And they investigate it online. And they create a learning artifact. It might be a series of podcasts. It might be a web page. But they create that resource. They develop some important digital literacies in the process. And they also get credit for it. They get 10 credits SCQF level 6, which is like college level study. So it gives them something. A lot of the learners that Lead supports and the volunteers also don't have what you might call the expected background in terms of progression through education, who've been disenfranchised. Sometimes their disabilities have resulted in them being disenfranchised and disadvantaged. But it's a way for them to undertake opportunities and say, I don't have this, but here's what I've got, and here's I can show you what I've learned about this thing that I'm interested in. What I think is important about that, though, is that the volunteers and the service users, in this case Leeds learners, they're creating content. They're creating tools, resources to support others. And I think this becomes really important because who else, if not the service users or the volunteers, can better say what they need to say? I think there was an example earlier about, why get someone else to create a poster when one of the group can create it? Who's going to know better what they want to say and how to communicate it? And that's what I think this is about as well. It's about creating resources and tools that will support people in the future as well. Finally, we're going to explore some of these key uses of social media for what are broadly called better health initiatives this afternoon. But there are a number of things that are starting to emerge in terms of good practice. In terms of meeting targets and goals, then the individual documenting the progress through blogs or social group updates, support workers sending reminders, maybe through text message, about upcoming meetings or targets. Utilising online social groups for support. This could be small group support or it could be budding arrangements. And we've touched upon this idea that the opportunity to read and reflect before you say anything can be of great benefit to those who are nervous, are unsure, a little bit apprehensive. And then sharing experiences with others, including through video perhaps, but certainly creating podcasts, short articles, which can be really personally motivating for the creator of those resources, but for others, because they're reading about things, they're listening to things produced by people who have gone through very similar experiences to themselves. And then this idea about bringing in sort of guest experts to online workshops that you can record and share. So I'll end with an invitation, if we can. Glenn's kind of covered this already. To say, Julia and I don't work in recovery, we work in education. But we think there are some things that we do that in different contexts. So the Choose Life project that we're about to embark on, we want to involve the service users as well as the Simpson House staff in creating these tools and resources for others and exploring how we can use these approaches effectively and creating things like podcasts, creating things like guides that can be offered to others. And then, us producing this stuff rather than have it produced for us and making it as relevant as possible. We'll explore some more of this in the workshop this afternoon, but the invite we want to end with is for anyone who's interested in getting involved, really, I think, isn't it, Glenn?
Absolutely, yes.
And there'll be an opportunity to maybe register your interest at the workshop this afternoon. And if you're not coming to the workshop, then I think probably just speak to Glenn or Paul and get involved if you're interested.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Keith.